Day. My name is Laura Massey from Two Feathers Medicine, and I'm on the Andrew Bartzis New Teachings platform. So it occurred to me that much of our lives, certainly my life, has been very influenced by my relationships. And that's not just the intimate relationships or friendships or partners or people on earth now. It's also relationships to the rocks, the trees, the natural world, and our relationship to the unseen world, to our ancestors, to our galactic brothers and sisters, and so on. So this got me thinking, and when I think and want to work through things, I tend to write it down and write it down as a prayer. So sit back, relax, join me in this prayer. We're going to clear away any energies that are not here for our greater good. We're going to open sacred space now with the prayer for right relationship. I call to great mystery, the source of all. I call to the creative spirit of great mystery that flows through the all. I call to the seven directions that carries the beauty and attributes of our ancestors. I call to the four winds of peace that carry the spirit-born messages of all directions. I call to the ancestors on the blue road of spirit, waiting for us to acknowledge ourselves as infinite beings on our red road journey. I call to the spiritual courts of equity to hold sacred space in the moment of now as I step out of fraud time into this ever-existing no-time moment to speak my words forged in peace. I recognize it is my sacred responsibility on my own sacred journey to form right relationship with others who share Earth Mother as their celestial dreamtime source. In this time of the great remembering and great awakening, it is our sovereign duty to recognize our relationship to Earth Mother and all sentient beings on all realms, seen and unseen. Great Spirit, how do we, dreamers of the southern skies, teach those who are in denial or indifferent to our unseen worlds? Or how do we help those whose faith has been broken by trauma and hardships, so they too might understand relationships are more than those between living beings on surface Earth? How do we teach people that right relationship begins with Source, with ourselves at all stages of life growth on Earth, with all consciousness, from the stone people to the standing nations, the animals, birds, insects, plants, our brothers and sisters, the clouds and thunder beings, to Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, and Grandmother Moon, to our ancestors, past, present, and future. Show me how I may help them see beyond the limited point of view churned out by mass media that nothing is connected. Many have become isolated beings, struggling to maintain conscious connection to themselves, let alone connection to others or the greater expanse of creation. As the oral teachings have been systematically and deliberately wiped out across the planet, it falls to those awake and aware enough to recognize that words, thoughts, prayers, and right actions are needed to trigger the memory of those lost teachings that are carried in our DNA. Those lost teachings that speak to us of our rites of passage to the right way of living on Earth alongside all sentient beings in equal co-creation unconditional love, a non-hierarchical order, and the joy and benefits to all of building and maintaining these relationships. The lost teachings that spoke of honourable ways of living, respecting both the living and those that have passed to other realms, allowing others to live their life path their own way, make their own mistakes to learn from, and follow their own soul's journey without interference from others' need for control or manipulation. Cooperation rather than competition. The passing of the talking stick, so all may have their sacred point of view heard. I bring the peace pipe of inner peace to my sacred inner space as I recognize prayers help us remember what we have forgotten. Prayers are remembering catalysts, nudges from our own soul working with Great Spirit that co-creation of right word can awaken those who are ready to hear the messages. Prayer is the natural medium for those relationships. It's a shared spoken and unspoken language that we have used since we recognize there's more beyond this physical existence, and we desire reconnection as we remember who we are. I open my sacred prayer ground with the remembering that prayer is fundamental to our relationships with our unseen world. Whether it's a personal practice or one we share with others, it's mastering our own connection to spirit that enhances our own journey of the self. Prayer can be spoken or silent. We can create our own prayer ground, the sacred space where we can let down from our worldly responsibilities and be fully present as authentic beings who have turned up to commune in joy. And if we've lost our joy or mojo, prayer will help us find it and rekindle our relationships with ourselves. Whatever and whoever holds our energy of belief in the unseen is who we were having this relationship through prayer with. If we allow it, prayer is a natural transitioning of the joy of our lives into a communion and union relationship with the universe, source, great mystery and great spirit. It's an easy transition when we feel huge joy, because that joy already has prayer encoded in it. Joy is an energy of appreciativeness, of thanks, of wonder, almost pleasant surprise, all the ways to describe joy. We overflow with positive emotions, and I acknowledge joy is the portal to prayer. Its layers are silent or spoken in our awareness or unawareness. I now feel the fuel of prayer that deepens connection to relationships and is the spiritual door opener. For those times when we lack the motivation or feel stuck or even resistant to prayer to find our relationship to Spirit, I call upon you, Great Spirit, to help us regain that prayer trust, rekindle the temporary loss of faith, when we can't be bothered or see no gain, or are too lazy or depressed or encumbered or overwhelmed, or too distracted or we're procrastinating. This is the stuck energy we can feel at times in our lives, and this is where the application of courage, commitment and discipline are what it takes to pull us out of this regression state of being. We have to dig deep to find the absolute willpower to pray. For just as joy is the portal to prayer, so prayer is also the portal to joy and to joyous relationships. So, right relationship begins in the womb. It's natural co-creation at this stage, with Great Spirit, with the divine. The placenta is our celestial exchange system. Before the forgetting of the birth canal, we knew all about right relationship. We existed in that blissful state right relationship can bring. Then we're tumulted into this world where we must learn about our relationships to ourselves and others. From finding the joy in holding our own toes as a small baby, to ourselves as we grow. As children, we try desperately to hang on to that fun and joy and amazement of our body, until a sharp word from a parent or teacher or those in authority in our lives takes away that joy with words of shame that undermine our whole joy of being. Then the global narrative sets unachievable standards for how we must look, as if their standards were the only benchmark required. We strive headstrong to meet their supposed standards and criteria in some sort of competitive, disempowering scenario that by design overrides our innocent, inner joy we held about ourselves, and replace it with fear, disgust, displeasure, disappointment, dissatisfaction, and disdain. As teenagers, we're particularly prone to this, but it can continue through our lives until we learn about right relationship with ourselves, to find our own unique bodies, to treat ourselves well, to honour ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to love ourselves. Are we not a soul having a skin suit experience, a DNA skin suit experience? Shame has no place here, how we treat ourselves. Loving ourselves was knocked out of us early. It's time to rekindle that self-love spark that reconnects mind, body, and soul, using the heart as its source point, and begin a conscious relationship with ourselves. Meditation is a good medium for finding the spirit within, as well as prayer. But there are times our soul needs to hear our manifest now voice. It helps form that relationship between our mind and body, interacting with our soul. Heart meditations and prayers help us acknowledge our relationship to our very own source of life force. So, Great Spirit, show us how to not deny the very life force that fuels us by shutting off our relationship to ourselves through ignoring those internal messages from our heart and gut. We know both our heart and gut has its own brain and internal eyes. We can source great wisdom from our relationship to them. Help us to do that. Relationships throughout our lives give us the self-context to learn about ourselves, and it's a continual process. How others perceive and react to us may be an indication of where we are on our own journey. What is highlighted for us that is out of balance and negatively affects our relationships? Where do we need to do inner work? What shortfalls are we seeing in others that are actually reflecting our own? What triggers us in others? We can use our relationships to help us navigate our own internal healing when we're self-aware enough to notice their intricacies. So I open my heart with unconditional love to be a sacred neutral witness and holding grace for others on their own journey with their own faith and beliefs. And I'm not in fear that my heart will be hurt or broken, for that is part of my life path, although I recognise the need for boundaries and protection so that it's not abused. I open my heart because I hold unconditional love for all relationships, even those challenging ones, for they're the ones that help me grow and learn and evolve. I do not need to have contact or communication for those that are toxic to my journey, but I do need to have forgiveness and boundaries. Great Spirit, help me use discretion in all relationships. So I use conscious choice to allow or disallow others' entanglement with me. I recognize right relationships require maintenance, contact, communication, and trust. Being fully present and listening, respecting another's sacred view. Right relationships means we need boundaries in any dimension. Seen or unseen can become toxic when they don't work on equal exchange. Good relationships are formed with the equal co-creation of the beings interacting with the energetic environment algorithm of the moment, and then conversations and interactions just flow. That's both seen and unseen worlds exchanging energy in a sacred neutral way with no hidden agendas, so it becomes an effortless sharing. We don't just communicate on the physical level. All communication involves our seen and unseen world. Great discussions take place between our higher selves, ancestors, and all beings that make up our soup of creation. This is how pertinent our unseen worlds are. They are guiding us to meet karmic balancing in relationships and the soul journey we planned before we came, nudging us towards what we need for our greater growth. Have you ever been looking for an answer and find that in a conversation, in a relationship, the answer you're looking for comes up? That's your unseen world helping you out. So we need to establish a good working relationship with our spirit world. And we do this simply by daily practice of prayer. Our relationship with Great Spirit, our ancestors, those on the Blue Road, can help us learn more about the multidimensional beings that we are. It's not just in this world that our relationships can flounder or flourish. So we must decide on the quality of the relationship we want with the unseen, with those on the other dimensions, and with spirit itself. If we are to move forward and evolve in the natural way, aligned with us natural energies, and we accept we are galactic and universal citizens, we must open our hearts and our minds to accept other sentient beings on other realms as our brothers and sisters or our ancestors. And this does not mean we go gung-ho into communication without the due diligence of researching, intuiting who we are wanting to entangle with, and without a spiritual protection practice. We must use all facets of our internal and external spiritual wisdom to keep ourselves free from anything that isn't an equal co-creator, anything wanting to harvest our energy or steal our life force. Sovereignty and spiritual hygiene are an absolute prerequisite to establishing relationships in the unseen. The right ancestral offerings, prayer, daily practices, ceremonies, and rituals, and the self-alchemy, doing the inner work on ourselves, will bring the most valid frequency matching other dimensional relationships to us, if that is our intention. Inner work is where we take a gendered time to look inwards at ourselves. What triggers us? Where are we not impeccable with thought, word, and action? That deep truth of where we are deluding ourselves or in outright denial, arguing incessantly for our own limitations without stopping to do that inner search of the truth. As we reconstruct the fragments of ourselves we lost through trauma in this life and others, we are acting responsibly to and for ourselves and others, holding that mantle of responsibility for the next 7 future generations of ourselves. This is the basis of all responsible relationships. And there's no pretend energy that works for this and will bring you responsible communication and relationship. No faux practices that will bring you any form of communication that's of integrity. Initially, it might appear that way, but just as in our physical world, dig deeper and any relationships pursued will be empty and disempowering because they lack any sacred, honourable intention on both sides. In the sacred space of respect, right relationships are planted and nurtured on all realms of existence. So why have so many forgotten that it is our natural birthright and legacy to have fluid relationships with our ancestors, with our galactic brothers and sisters, with our spirit guides? And for those that carry that awareness, why are we not carrying the mantle of responsibility to establish and maintain those relationships? I recognise that some are not ready to do so. Some have been ridiculed and simply given up. Some have gone down the zealot path and ego runs their communications, making them susceptible to hijacking and entangling with beings who disrespect them. And it can happen on any realm. It's because it's no longer considered a natural part of living. So, in this moment of continuous now, as this sovereign being, I now step forward and claim back those lost teachings of right relationship with my seen and unseen world, of right relationship with my ancestors and all sentient beings on other realms of existence who align with union, communion, unity, and the law of one. I acknowledge with gratitude that because of my own soul interaction and choices in the seen and unseen world, the patterns of connection and interconnectivity of my soul family, and the weave of manifestation of my DNA bloodline human ancestors upon this earth, and the support of our non-human ancestors like animals and elementals, that I have beautifully manifested with exquisite timing into my divine place on earth in this time-space equation as a magnificent DNA soul connected being, carrying all those potentials that have been honed and gathered as all these ancestors experience manifested life here. From my heart, I acknowledge with wonderment and appreciation that they lived, toiled, wept, suffered, yet they healed, sung, danced, and laughed, and they learned the lessons they could of life on earth. The ever-increasing sum total of their experience covers the full spectrum that living on earth brings. For this is why they came. Their relevance is as potent today as when they lived on earth, and their experiences are our gifts. So with a heart of joy and gratitude, I step forward and claim my birthright and legacy to these gifts and to the potential of the unique relationships with them. I accept that torch of eldership passed from soul to soul, from lineage to lineage, from generation for generation, from the very first ancestor who dreamed us all into existence. I open my heart, I open my superluminal pathways, I open my frequency to fully accept all these gifts and blessings. For that is how we establish right relationship, acceptance, unconditional love and trust, and the two-way street of energy exchange. all the victories, the teachings, the love, the knowledge that is my birthright and legacy to claim through this relationship. For I am them and they are me, intertwined, interwoven through time and no time. A unity of colours that flows and creates the right relationship between the unseen and seen worlds. And for those unhealed ancestors, I claim my birthright and legacy to work in right relationship with the healed, well ancestors, to clear all the harmful patterns through my great work of self-healing, through right words, joy and dance to transform the pattern into a teaching of what is possible when we all work together in the seen and unseen to outcreate and transmute these patterns. We share DNA in the bloodlines and soul connection in the soul families. And where these combine, we have even more potency in relationships. I claim my birthright and legacy to have my soul family as my DNA lineage and my friends as my 1 degree of separation. For this has been lost throughout history as the teachings of the indigenous have been overwritten with the global narrative of deceit. I claim all those prayers, poems, stories, all the lost teachings, all the wisdom from our elders, all the rituals and ceremonies, all the elemental connections, all that was good and true and beautiful that was handed down generation after generation until technology and television, media and global narrative reduced them to ridicule and mythology, to fantasy and supposed untruths. I revoke any part of the global narrative and media that ignores, deletes, and misrepresents the natural flow of wisdom of living on earth. For these ancient truths are the natural flow of the universe through us, and no system, misrepresentation, manipulation, no unwell, unsovereign ancestor, no aspect of fraud time can prevent this natural flow. For it is supported by universal energies and carries the full force and potency of millions of healed ancestors, creating the divine law of one. It's unstoppable. It flows whether we accept it or not. I accept with gratitude this full flow as unfettered, unadulterated legacy of right relationship, so I may be the medicine this world needs. Aho. I thank the ancestors of the 7 directions and the 4 winds, our guides, guardians and angels, our courts of equity. And I bless and I close this sacred prayer space. Aho.